Earlier this week, I shot a video about the concept of Floetry and how it can make or break various business or casual deals that you're trying to work with. And I just remembered that there were quite a number of other cases where either I use Floetry against somebody else or vice versa, and I thought I'd share some of these examples with you guys. I used to use ride sharing on Craigslist a lot. I would travel maybe to a nearby city, maybe from Seattle to Portland, or when I was living in Rochester, New York, I used to drive to Pittsburgh to see my family, and I discovered that some strategies could help me find better rideshare partners and or get the seat filled more readily. One time, I discovered this by mistake, actually. I had looked at a coin show that I really had no business going to. It was a curiosity. But I was living in Rochester, New York, and I'd never been to a coin show in New York City. And I had really no business driving to New York City. It wasn't on the way home to my family. Oh, it was a considerable cost, given my situation at the time. But I posted it on Rideshare. If I got a good offer, I would go. And so a couple days later, I get an offer from these two. I think they were roommates, so they were both going to New York for different reasons, and they had offered me together a total of $20. And my first reaction was insult because it would cost a significant amount. They didn't realize that I didn't really need to go to New York. They thought maybe a family or a school issue or whatever. So they weren't trying to insult me. It was just that, I don't need to go to New York if I'm only getting $20 for the trip. Um, so after I composed myself, because when I got the email, my first reaction was insult. It took me a few seconds to sort it out, and I emailed them. I said, "This is only a curiosity. I really have no business going to New York." And they were like, "I understand. I understand. That's all right." And we went about our business. And then later that night, they offered me $70, and that was great. And I realized that it was an accident that time, but I realized that I need to have more options so that things can flow from one to another. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. I have this other option, and the Floetry will work a whole lot better. And but the problem is that they then use Floetry against me, because what had happened was when I went to pick up these two roommates, what had happened was that they were trying to move a bunch of stuff to New York, and we had agreed to meet at 1 p.m. and it took them an hour. I went to their apartment, and then they spent an hour rearranging stuff, and as a result, toward the end of the trip into New York, I got very tired. And because I hadn't budgeted for that extra hour of them moving furniture, I was a little bit upset about that because when I got to their apartment, I fell into the sunk cost fallacy. This is another problem with Floetry. I felt that I had already invested my mental energy scheduling this trip. I didn't want to just leave them behind and say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to New York at that moment," which is probably a mistake. I probably should have done that. If I had threatened that, perhaps they would have made other arrangements for their. Who knows? It was 6 years ago. I really can't predict what would have happened if I had said that. But that was one option to help me regain some of that flow tree. Okay, so speaking of coin shows, I used to go to a coin show regularly. It was in Rochester, and one of the dealers there had given me a really good deal one time. He was probably hoping, I bet he took a loss on that deal, and he was hoping I would become a regular customer. See, I look very young for my age. He probably thought I was a high school kid, and he thought he could hook me, and see, he didn't realize I was working on my PhD at the time. He probably also didn't realize that I know a lot more about coins than my age would suggest, and he gave me a really good deal. And after that, he tried to give me a few deals that weren't so great, and I caught on. I didn't take them, and so he came up with this strategy that every time he saw me at the coin show, he would say that I arrived too late, that he had these things and he sold them for this price, and I knew it wasn't believable, the prices that he was saying, and I just let him talk to a wall. One important issue with Floetry is that when people bring up bullshit, you got to listen more than you talk. If you respond to it, they're gonna think that they've hooked you. You know, their bait is working. And one important aspect I've learned is that when my bullshit meter starts to go off, I let them talk to a wall. You know, you let them run out of steam, and eventually they'll have to come up with some other issue, and then maybe you can then take a better deal out of that. But he made this he would make this remark that I had arrived a few minutes too late, that he had sold these coins, and one time, my schedule allowed for me to arrive at the coin show really early. I waited at the door for 10 minutes for the coin show to start. I wanted to see what he would. I knew he had some other tricks up his sleeve. And sure enough, I get into the coin show, and he starts talking to me about how he got into a road rage with somebody on the road, and the guy he fought with happened to collect coins, and he sold them to him. This story got so ridiculous, and I let him talk to a wall, and secretly I was laughing about it. Um, this also happens when I deal with clients of mine when I'm doing private tutoring or when I'm doing odd jobs that I see on Craigslist. Part of the problem with, I hate to be racist, but when I deal with other Asians, in our Asian culture, we tend to see each other as one big family. I don't know if this will make sense to a lot of Western viewers, but a lot of Asians just treat each other as one big family. Oh, I think the same goes with Russians. The Russians treat each other like one big family. And one time, a few times actually, I have clients of mine who they know they're getting a steal. Oh, and they want the steal to last, and so they come up with this weird bullshit of oh, I'm going to refer all these other clients. And then I had one client who kept asking me if I was interested in this girl that they knew, and what other bullshit did they come up with? Anyways, when stuff like that happens, I let them speak to a wall. You know, I let them ramble about that. Except when they bring up new clients, I say, well, I'm happy to take them, but when you don't have to bring it up every time. You know, when it comes up, let me know. I'm happy to take them. And it's just really annoying because it's a waste of everybody's time. If they want the deal, they could just let me know. Oh, but this is another case of how to handle these strategies. Is you let them talk to a wall. They can ramble about this girl. It's kind of funny because one time, this client of mine, his mother had shown me this picture of a girl, but I never got to keep the picture. You know, and she never told me anything more. You have to wonder if that girl even exists, or if she even knows that person personally. It might just be a celebrity that she picked up on the internet. Who knows? Another thing I've noticed about negotiating with people is that you don't want to negotiate with somebody who has too much time on their hands. If you do, you will lose either your time or your money or both. When I'm doing these odd tutoring gigs, I find the worst people to negotiate with are stay-at-home mothers who just plenty of time to haggle. You know, when I negotiate with these people and I have other things to do, I end up giving a lot of concessions, or it becomes a war of attrition. We're using our time as a nuclear weapon, and that's not a very productive way to be using time. I had a situation where I discovered how tough language barriers can be. Even for people, when I deal with other people who speak English but not fluently, maybe it's their second or third language, I find I often give concessions just so that the conversation can flow easily, and it's not very good. Let me think where this has happened before. I had a landlord one time who was from Dominican Republic, and I think he's a nice guy, but he had all these awkward obsessions with uh, how I made the mistake of living with my landlord, and usually I can get away with that, except that I found that when I did something that was a little bit odd, I found it difficult to explain to him because he didn't speak very much English, and I often made concessions. And he didn't want me to, for example, keep my crock pot on during the day. What else happened? He got worried about me leaving in the middle of the night. He worried that I might forget to lock the door. We were living in this is southern Harlem in New York. Normally, if somebody spoke English well, I could explain the situation very well. But this guy, it became very difficult, and I learned that language barriers can really wreak havoc on the flowetry of your conversation. Thanks for watching.